Have you ever noticed what happens when two people who spent months absorbing each other's silences finally stop speaking at the same time? Not one leaving and one chasing. Both walking away. It looks like peace from the outside, doesn't it? Two adults, mature enough to let go without a scene. But something stranger is happening underneath. Something almost mechanical, and it has very little to do with how much either person cared. You already know the shape of this story, even if you've never named it. One of you felt everything. Every shift in tone, every unanswered message, every flicker of distance, and carried it like a second job. The other one felt just as much, but built a wall around it so early that even they stopped noticing the wall was there. When people like this finally go quiet at the same time, it isn't closure. It's two nervous systems doing the only thing they know how to do under pressure. And that should make you pause. For the empath, the silence doesn't feel like relief. It feels like a wound that keeps reopening every time you check your phone and there's nothing there. You replay conversations looking for the moment you did something wrong, because somewhere along the way, you learned that connection is your job to maintain. That belief drains you slowly, quietly, in a way nobody else can see. It is exhausting to be the only one holding a relationship together, and it is even more exhausting to keep doing it after the relationship is technically over. Carl Jung spent much of his life studying what he called the shadow, the parts of ourselves we don't consciously claim, the traits we push out of awareness because they're inconvenient, painful, or threatening to who we think we are. In an empath's shadow often lives an unspoken belief that their worth depends on being needed. In an avoidant's shadow lives the opposite fear, that being needed means being consumed. Neither of them chose these patterns on purpose. Both were shaped by something earlier, something that had nothing to do with this relationship at all. Think about how many times you've absorbed someone else's mood and mistaken it for your own responsibility to fix. How many times you sensed tension in a room and immediately scanned yourself for what you did wrong. This isn't sensitivity in the simple sense. It's a nervous system trained since childhood to monitor other people for safety cues, because at some point, safety depended on getting it right. That kind of vigilance doesn't turn off just because a relationship ends. It follows you into the silence. It follows you into every unanswered text you refuse to send. And on the other side of that silence sits someone who learned an entirely different lesson. That closeness is dangerous. That needing someone is a liability. That the safest move is to leave before you can be left. Jung wrote extensively about the persona, the mask we present to the world to stay socially acceptable. The avoidance persona often looks like independence, calm, self-sufficiency. Underneath it is usually a person who was taught, early and painfully, that their needs were too much for someone else to hold. Neither pattern is a character flaw. Both are survival strategies that outlived the situation that created them. But here's what almost nobody names out loud. When an empath and an avoidant enter a relationship, they don't just clash, they complete a circuit. The empath's overextension gives the avoidant permission to withdraw further because someone else is doing the emotional labor. The avoidance withdrawal gives the empath a target to chase because now there's a problem to solve, a person to reach, a wound to heal from the outside instead of the inside. This is what Jung called projection. Casting the disowned parts of yourself onto someone else, then relating to them as if those parts belong entirely to them. The empath often projects their own unmet needs onto the avoidant, believing that if they just love hard enough, the wall will finally come down. The avoidant often projects their own fear of abandonment outward, treating closeness itself as the threat rather than the fear underneath it. Neither one is fully seeing the other person. Both are managing an old story that started long before this relationship began. So who benefits from this pattern continuing? Not the empath, who burns out trying to earn safety through effort. Not the avoidant, who stays technically safe but permanently alone even inside a relationship. The real beneficiary is the pattern itself, the unconscious script that both people learned before they ever met, quietly running in the background, using this relationship as its latest stage. You didn't choose this system consciously, but you can choose to stop performing your part in it. That's the strange gift hidden inside mutual no contact. When both people go silent at the same time, the circuit breaks. The empath can't chase what isn't chasing back. The avoidant can't retreat from someone who isn't following. For the first time in the relationship, both people are forced to sit with themselves instead of with each other. This is uncomfortable. It is also, according to Jung's model of individuation, exactly where real change begins, not in fixing the other person, but in finally meeting the parts of yourself you outsourced to them. This isn't about winning the silence or proving you can survive without them. It isn't about performing indifference while secretly waiting for a message. It's about something much quieter and much harder. Using the space to ask what you were actually looking for in that connection. If you're the empath, the question is rarely, why didn't they love me enough? It's closer to, why did I believe I had to earn love through exhaustion? If you're the avoidant, the question isn't, why do people always want too much? It's closer to, what happened to make closeness feel like danger? Start small. Sit in silence for 10 minutes without reaching for a phone to fill it. Write down, honestly, what you were hoping the other person would give you that you haven't learned to give yourself. Notice the urge to check their social media, and instead of acting on it, name what you're actually afraid of finding. Ask yourself what you did in that relationship that wasn't really about them at all, but about an old fear finally finding a familiar shape. These are not dramatic acts. They are the quiet, repeated choices that actually change a pattern. Expect resistance, both from yourself and from the pattern. You will want to reach out, not because you miss them specifically, but because the old system craves the loop it knows. You may feel worse before you feel clearer, because facing your own shadow is rarely comfortable at first. Jung's work suggests that what we refuse to make conscious doesn't disappear. It keeps showing up in our relationships until we're willing to look at it directly. This silence is your chance to look. Something shifts when you stop treating the relationship as unfinished business and start treating it as information. First comes the discomfort of not having a target for your energy. Then comes a strange kind of quiet you're not used to, one that isn't emptiness, but isn't quite peace yet either. Then, slowly, comes clarity. Not about them, but about the parts of yourself you can finally see without someone else's reaction to filter it through. You stop being the one who reacts to every shift in someone else's mood, and you start being the one who decides, deliberately, what you actually want to carry forward. That's not coldness, that's the beginning of individuation. Becoming a person who isn't defined entirely by absorbing others or by protecting yourself from them. You may lose the version of the relationship you were hoping for. What you gain, if you stay with this process, is a version of yourself that doesn't need someone else's presence or absence to feel whole. Keep watching the next video. What comes after this stage matters more than you think.